Hello and welcome to this session on how to use sources. Today we're going to be taking a look at how we use sources in order to support our content. First, let's ask ourselves a few questions to see how we're going to be using these sources. Does your assignment include instructions on source use? Does the source provide context or background information about your topic? Has the source shaped your argument by raising a question, suggesting a line of thinking, or providing a provocative quotation? Does the source serve as an authoritative voice in support of your claim? Does the source provide evidence for your claim? Does the source make a counter argument that you will disagree with or take a position that complicates your own position? So once you've answered these questions and decided how you're going to be using your sources, you have to decide how you're going to be using these sources. There are 4 different ways that we rely on in integrating sources into our writing. It's authorizing, illustrating, borrowing, or extending. So when you're authorizing, you're basically relying on the expertise of another writer, like an expert in the field, and you're going to be using concepts and arguments of these experts to show that we are informed and to support our ideas. When you're illustrating, you're looking to other texts to use scenes, incidents, or stories and images that you will use to illustrate a point you wish to make. When you're borrowing, you're drawing on terms of or ideas from other writers to use in thinking through your subject. You're not just using these ideas to support your work, but to advance it. When you're extending, you're putting your own spin on terms or concepts that you take from other texts. Here, you're doing more than borrowing, you are changing somewhat the meaning of the concept. The first 2 are clear, so I'm going to give you 2 examples of how borrowing and extending work. Examples of borrowing. So television has achieved the status of myth, as Roland Barthes uses the word. He means by myth a way of understanding the world that is not problematic, that we are not fully conscious of, that seems, in a word, neutral. A myth is a way of thinking so deeply embedded in our consciousness that it is invisible. That is now the way of television. We're no longer fascinated or perplexed by its machinery. We do not tell stories of its wonders. We do not confine our television sets to special rooms. Roland Barthes himself did not talk about television as an example of a myth. However, we've used his idea of what he meant by a myth and applied that. We borrowed that concept and applied it to television and what we mean by television, how that became a natural thing for us. An example of extending would be this one. Joseph Edison's essay on genius, published in The Spectator in 1711, laid out the terrain of genius as we use the term today to denote exceptional talent or someone who possesses it. According to Edison, there are 2 kinds of genius, natural and learned. In general terms of this dichotomy, brilliant versus industrious, still underlines our notion of genius today. But despite Thomas Edison's often quoted adage, genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. It's the inspiration we dote on. So here we are extending the definition of genius and what Edison talked about. In our next video, we're going to see how we're going to integrate these sources into our text, into our writing, and in a third video, we'll look at how to document these sources.